This is the DocNation podcast. We are a movement founded by doctors, for doctors, dedicated to empowering medical professionals to reclaim control over healthcare decisions and advocating for their fair share of the industry's resources. Please note, the views expressed are those of DocNation and not necessarily those of our guests or referenced health centers.
Yeah, welcome to the DocNation podcast. We used to do webinars, and we did them for about a year, and we wanted to be a little bit more flexible and keep things a little bit shorter. We want people to look at DocNation podcast and say, I got 15 minutes. I'm going to get from beginning to end on one of them. And this one's the Founders meeting. This is the Founders podcast, and it's a little bit about why and how we got started. And I'm just going to try to do it in 2 minutes for myself. But I play at high level sports, so individually, this was my dream and my focus. And DocNation coming to life is me realizing a dream of mine. But I played high level sports, and as I was looking around, man, us players were getting pampered, and it was really, really cool. And but quickly, I asked myself the question, like, why? I throw a ball, and it was to the level where people are, obviously people are cheering. We know how fans are, but I don't think the typical average fan understands the level of care we get behind the scenes. Like, I had an agent read a contract to me. I never even read it. It was like story time. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And I just knew baseball wasn't going to be a forever thing for me. I was making like $800 a month. It was a short thing, a very, very short stint. And I've always been an entrepreneur before baseball even, and always wanted to after. And my whole focus in life was I like creating businesses to solve problems. But after playing and seeing some of my friends and other teammates, and they're just getting pampered, I'm thinking, this is a little weird, honestly. This is a little much for me. And I thought to myself, but I have a brilliant idea, and it's going to come after we're done playing. And the idea is create an agency with this type of white glove service and focus on people who really matter at another level. And I was taking a shower today, and I know I'm going to get hammered on. This morning, I was thinking about this. I know I'm going to get hammered on by some of my ex-players, but like, let's create that kind of white glove service for people who an average Tuesday is cutting someone's heart open, saving someone's life, as the family is in, I got full body chills just thinking about it. The family's in the waiting room on their knees praying that you got enough sleep last night, that you were responsible enough to manage your 4 kids, 5 years old and under, which I have. Let's say I'm a doctor. I have 4 kids, 5 years old and under. I woke up at 3 o'clock last night and I didn't go back to sleep. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, I might not be my sharpest, but guess what? The patients don't care. The car accident didn't care, didn't wait. Right? So am I going to be my best at 4 or 5 o'clock? I don't know. And so when I look at how professional athletes are getting treated, which they deserve it. Here's why they deserve it. In the United States of America, if money is made, respect is garnered. That's just how good, whether it's a good way of making money or a bad way of making money, there's a level of respect that's garnered and attention. There wouldn't be agents if the players weren't making a bunch of money. That's just how it works, right? Well, there's a group in the United States who across the board make some good money, right? And
It's changing.
Yeah. And it ought to be protected, is all I'm saying. It ought to be protected. And it's just not the money side of things. The agents would do all kinds of things like buy cars, buy homes, find babysitters, everything. And so my dream was always to start an agency to support a group that was a little bit more important. And I don't care how hammered on I get for this. Bring it. Like, you throw a ball, you catch a ball. It's uplifting. I remember after September 11th, since we're one day away from the anniversary, I remember after September 11th and our president throwing out a strike to Derek Jeter, and how that uplifted the spirit of the United States. And I was like, I had tears rolling down my face. My whole family, we were like pumping our fists. Doctors do that every day and more and more. So my background is that I've always had this dream to start an agency that protected a really, really important group of people. I thought about astronauts and I thought about high-level politicians. That quickly went out the window. I thought about astronauts and scientists for quite some time, and in part I got that because physicians are all scientists,
Mm-hmm.
and I just feel very, very grateful to be here. We currently serve a large group of people, and I think we're doing really, really good. So, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, I think that was a great start, Reed. I mean, for me, a lot of it is the same. Uh, the idea started for me when me and my buddies were watching football on a Sunday in med school. And I just kind of turned to them. I said, why don't physicians have agents?
Yeah.
If there's any group of people out there that's extremely high level performance, high stress, and have to be on at all times. Oh, you're thinking an NFL wide receiver. It's like, no, that's a physician. Like you have to be on at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Sick days are almost not allowed, right? If you say, hey, I'm sick, I need to cancel your surgery, that patient has been thinking about this surgery from the day it was scheduled
Yeah.
to the day they had the pain first or the day they had the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just walk in and not schedule surgeries. And what agents do for physicians is just give you that time to take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your mind. And right now, physicians don't do that. And that's why I'm so passionate about DocNation is no longer are we just helping the physician because physician burnout is through the roof. We all know this. Physician compensation is going down, which causes physician burnout to go up. Now it's the patients being affected. And we see this. These numbers are on every national media station where we say we spend the most amount of money in the world
Mm-hmm.
on healthcare. And we have some of the worst healthcare in the first world countries. And there is no one then takes the next step and talks to the reason. The reason is because we're not treating our physicians properly. People aren't happy to go into medicine. People are very tired. We're exhausted. And I know I'm speaking for myself, and I may be generalizing all physicians, but almost on every level, most physicians to say it's harder today to be a physician than it was 20 years ago. And medicine in the last 20 years has decreased because of that. And there's a lot of factors that's causing that. You can get into the health insurance debate. We can get into the Medicare debate of the Medicare CMS cuts. We can get into the student debt debate of how much debt these kids are having coming out of med school. All of this is a reason that physicians are burning out and healthcare is getting worse. And what DocNation could do is take a lot of that off of you, take all of your finances off of you, take all of that worry off of you, take all that fight. That thing you said about contracts. We don't know what we're doing in contracts. They hand us a contract, we sign it. It happens immediately. We're not getting the most out of what we could be. And with
a lawyer does not read the contract
no
to the doctor. Like what you had
exactly.
read, that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Notice the patient want you to be a specialist at anything else than the
No.
life-saving or life-renewing stuff that you do. Please just do that only, and then do whatever fun stuff you want. And that's the goal here.
Yeah. And I met Neil, and Neil was the one that finally said to me, he's like, do it. Let's start DocNation. And, we met Justin and Reed later, and Justin and Reed were already, this is kind of how things come together, right? We were running in one lane, they were running in one lane, we were running in this, and then we just got together and went apart. But I'll never forget the day Neil was like, just do it. He's like, start the business now. Let's do it. And Neil's one of those guys that understands medicine, kind of, he's inside medicine, but he's not a physician. So Neil, I'd like to hear your story. You're an athlete as well. I mean, we had that same conversation. I remember where we were when we had that conversation at Bow Campers after an event here. And you said, we got to do this. We have to do this for the patient. We have to do it to save healthcare. The sad thing is that was 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, probably, right? Things keep getting worse, and we're really trying to make it better.
Yeah, I remember that night too, Dr. G. It was, I could see in your eyes that as soon as I said, dude, I was like, I know he's for real. He's going to do this. He means business about this. And I was coming at it from a different angle, right? It's funny that you mentioned the patients are suffering. I had a heart for the patients. I was an athlete, just like Reed and you as well. And I went through some injuries. So I was interested in the body, injuries, pain, recovery. And that's how I got into medical devices, trying to help patients. And with some maturity, and excuse my ignorance here, but you realize quickly that in order to make an impact on these patients, you have to better take care of the doctors.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's not ignorant. I think people, that's not being ignorant. That I think we just expect that that's like a thing, but people don't understand that it's not. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
it's not ignorant. Everybody feels that way and thinks that way.
Yeah, and I think on my side of the business here, when you're interested in patient care and medical devices and partnering with doctors that way, the best representatives are the ones that are focusing on physician advocacy and improvements of their lives overall. What you can legally and ethically do to help your physician just focus only on patients. I think those reps are focused on that. So you asked me what I wanted to do and what I thought I was good at, and I was like, I want to help patients, but I also like to help coach doctors get to their goals. What are those? I want doctors to actually feel like normal people too, and actually have some free time and family as well, because you see them sacrificing so much on a daily basis. So they're easy for me to fight for and advocate for, and every chance I get to spend time with you guys, you hear my voice start to sound like this. I'm like, something's got to be done. And we're transitioning from these webinars to doing these podcasts because we're getting busier.
That's right.
We're being more successful here.
That's right.
So I really do like this idea.
And one thing I have to say for Neil, Justin, and Reed is it's very important for physicians, and sometimes physicians are wary of who to trust outside of medicine, to have people like you guys fighting for physicians. We've been burnt before. Health insurance companies really burned us.
Well, not just that, everybody. The
Well,
doctors
the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, was not supposed to take so much power away from physicians, and it did. We aren't allowed to own any portion of hospitals. It gave a lot of the power to the health insurance companies. And listen, I understand it was there to give more patients health insurance, but it really has ruined medicine. Not just that, but I don't want to get too political about it. That's why. But it's ruined medicine in the fact that the physicians don't have the power anymore. We had someone on our earlier podcast talking about how we're being told what to do by administrators who have no, physician background. So to have guys like you that your sole focus when you're with DocNation is to help the physician is extremely important. And I think we've seen it. I mean, it's one of my jobs helping with DocNation is to tell physicians like, hey, these guys are legit, because physicians don't trust anyone anymore. We've had the rug pulled from us too much, and we're too tired. I mean, there's the AMA just published something last week about preventing physician suicide. Like, the fact that that's where we're at is, how do we prevent this rising growth of physician suicide is insanity.
Yeah.
Right. It should be, you don't hear prevent quarterbacks from killing themselves because they have a great life and things are going really well, right, while they're there. Like, we need to get physicians to the point where they're happy, they're healthy, they're enjoying their life. So then they can take care of patients. Right now it's backwards. Right now we're taking care of patients, trying to just tread water with the rest of our lives.
You say life. You remember that game Life? It was like maybe Milton Bradley. It was like if you got to be the doctor, that you were like
you're the best one.
You're the best one. You were gonna win. You were like, I'm the doctor.
That's good.
How do we go from the best life to suicide?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And you mentioned one thing, and I don't want to get us off track here, but I think it's probably a good episode for a different another podcast episode. But you said we've been burned by, right? I want to know.
A lot of people have put their hands into the pot of medicine. Yeah, a lot of people have put their hands into the pot of medicine and just taken away. That pie doesn't get any bigger, right? CMS is cutting money for medicine every year. The portion that physicians get, Justin, I think you have the exact percentage, but the portion that physicians get of that pie is going down and down and down. And we're seeing more and more and more patients just to maintain the same revenue. That's why you see so many physicians without private practices anymore, is they can't afford it. You can't have a private practice. You can't build a business anymore with the reimbursements we're getting. So we're all getting conglomerated into big systems. That's where I'm saying we're being burned. We trust people. Physicians are very trusting people. To give up your 20s and go through that much education, you just trust people. That's the kind of person that becomes a physician. And this is where other lawyers or other finance people are going to get upset at me. But like, no one fails out of like finance school and goes to med school, right? That doesn't happen. Like, you fail out of med school maybe and go to law school or go to finance school. It's not the other way around. It's not that physicians aren't smart enough to become lawyers or become financial people. It takes a special person to want to be a physician. You actually have to want to help people. That's your main goal. That has to be your main goal. Or believe me, you wouldn't do it because it's brutal. Med school is brutal. Residency is brutal. But hey, I want to help people has to maintain there. What DocNation wants to do is help that physician. So all they have to worry about is helping people. And it's crazy that we've lost this. It's crazy that politicians and big business have taken so much away from physicians to the point where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Helping people isn't enough. My life is miserable. Like that's what I hear from a lot of physicians. And one last thing, I'll let you guys jump in. If you ask physicians, would you let your kid go into medicine? Something around 70 to 80% of physicians say no. That is scary.
That's the advice. The advice they give is to not do what I did. Don't follow my footsteps.
It's scary though, because you want in a country, in a community, you want your best and brightest going into medicine. And if they aren't, you're going to have a very unhealthy community, a very unhealthy country. Our best and brightest are going into finance because it's an easy life and you make a lot of money. I know it's not super easy, but believe me, it's easier than medicine.
It's not 10 years. You're not having to give up 10 years of your life just to start.
22 in New York City making bank after you went to 4 years of business school at Warren's. Right. At 22, I was paying $60,000 a year, studying 80 hours a week, and then going to class for another 30 hours a week. I mean, that's just what it was, right? I didn't have a 20s. No one starts a family in their 20s in medicine because they can't. All we're asking for as DocNation is once you're done, you deserve an easier life.
So let's talk about the financial piece of this for a second. I know it's not about just finances, but what's the number one cause of divorce? Or what is a top cause of divorce?
It is the number one reason people get divorced is finance.
Financial issues, whether good financial situation or bad financial situation. It's very disruptive, not being on the same page with your spouse. And I'm a certified financial planner, have a whole history in the financial services industry. My grandfather and father, now myself, in financial services before DocNation. And this is insane, what I'm about to say. And I'm torn to go and talk about this because we're talking about things that are meaningful to doctors, but then also things that are meaningful to patients. And really, the patient and doctor relationship used to be like this. It's been completely separated because, like you said, Anthony, there's only so many ways you can slice the pie.
Yeah.
What is the number one concern among doctors in every age category? If you were to survey them, the number one concern that they all have together collectively. And if you narrow it into like maybe putting it into the category of financial preparedness, what's the number one thing that they are concerned? Every single age group having enough. Okay, Reed, you want to ask?
It's just because I've been with you for 10, 11 years now.
What is it?
Having enough money to retire.
What?
That's insane.
Okay.
So, wait. Let me jump in there. So you know what I just saw a stat on? The number of physicians that have a side business. And I sat there, I'm like, and they were celebrating this.
You shouldn't have time for a side business, but you have to do it.
You shouldn't have to have a side business unless you want one. It was over 50% of physicians aged 35 to 50 have a side business. Yeah. You shouldn't have to have a side business. If you want to, understandable, but 50% of physicians, I don't think those people want to.
There's some necessity there.
They need to, or they're looking for an avenue out.
Right. So that's the precise.
That's not healthy. Yeah.
So in the early 2000s, when I was pursuing finance and ended up marrying my wife and met her father, who's a doctor, her brother's wife, her aunt and uncle, her cousin's husband, father, grandfather. There's multiple Dr. Nabbies on my side of the family. And financial services, it's like, okay, if there is a group of people that should be financially stable and secure and not have any worries at all, it ought to be doctors. Let's help them be as their life being as on the right path and healthy and ready for life to be able to do what? To impact their patients. And there isn't a better way to impact the community than to be at the best place mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything as a doctor. And the financial area is such a stressful component. And so this ought to be the group that should have the least of the issues. And this is the number one problem. And so when you look at back in the 1980s, most doctors were in charge of their lives when it comes to decisions around their practice. And they had ownership in what they were doing. And they received income that was commensurate to the time they took away to educate themselves, the training, and the risk they are taking, seeing patients and malpractice and whatnot. And we're at a situation now where they're only collecting 7 to 8% of the revenue they generate. There's no other profession that makes that small of income relative to what they generate coming into the door for the business.
Please
And
say that
so
again, Justin. What percentage?
imagine an engineer or a lawyer or some other professional that generates income to the business. They'd only get 7 to 8% of what they bring in the door.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's overhead. I get that. There's overhead. There's
yeah,
staff. There's marketing.
let's crosswalk it to football, right? Like the Players Association, their bargaining agreement is 50-50. 50%
Right.
of the revenue is dispersed to the players. Every major sport is like that.
So since we're on this topic, how much do you make during residency and fellowship?
Yeah,
What's the average?
I made a little while ago about 40 grand a year. Now it's around the average like 50-60 grand a year.
It's kind of
Okay,
60,
50 or 60
70,
grand a
80.
year. Okay. Hey, DocNation, fact check me and jump on here with a fact. But I think to be on the practice squad, to not even play in the games in the NFL, I think you make 400K.
Yeah.
400K.
Well,
Check me on that, DocNation.
The other big thing when you start talking about residence salaries, which we know that there's a residency up in Buffalo.
Buffalo
right now,
on strike right now.
On strike. But then you start factoring in the number of hours you work, and you bring it into an hourly wage. It ends up being less than minimum wage.
It's half.
That's nuts.
But you're like still taught to be this like martyr, if you will, like
Yes.
hey, you're doing it for the better good. Which if physicians had more autonomy, more say in how patients got treated, honestly, I don't think it would be as big of an issue too. It's the combination of having no autonomy, no life outside of medicine, and then not being compensated for that, while also the residents nowadays are coming out with $300,000 in loans.
Yeah.
Like the numbers just don't work.
So you're giving up your 20s. You're giving up your 20s. You're not making any money. What do most people do during their 20s?
They travel, they enjoy themselves, they find a wife, or a husband.
How do you have 2 or 3 or 4 kids when you're working 80, 90 hours a week, not making any money?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And it's even harder on women to have kids during residency. It's almost, I don't want to say frowned upon, but I've seen it where they expect, and things are getting better now, but I went to residency, someone had a baby and they were back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted to be, right? They just.
Do you think they were at par to provide the service they needed to provide?
No, I couldn't believe they had a child. I was struggling being a single guy in residency. To me, I was like, holy cow, you're a rock star that you're getting through here. But there was no support. There's no real support for physicians growing a family while they're going through residency. It's very hard.
That's tough.
So after over a decade, 15 some years of helping doctors financially, seeing the intricacies of their lives, doing financial colonoscopies of their situation, going through their checking account, going through their credit card statements, going through and looking at trying to find ways to help them cut expenses, increase income, and doing that on an individual basis. I think for Reed and I, we just saw that, yeah, we can help somebody be more efficient in their own little bubble, and that's good. And we want to do that, and we actually do help in a lot of ways on the DocNation side with that. Getting a mega tax deduction, getting hundreds of thousands of dollars back into our client's pocket through tax savings. That's a key piece of this stuff. But it's one thing if we can help people on an individual level, but the rate at which we're able to help people one by one we're not going to be able to help enough people in time to keep up with what CMS is doing. So that's why for us, it was like, we need to do something that we can take the gloves off, meaning we can be representing our clients in a way that we don't have compliance and red tape and other bureaucracy types of things that get in the way. We can go direct to having the conversation with whoever needs to be spoken to about advocating for our client or the group of doctors at the employer to form their own union or things like that. We saw the writing on the wall after 10, 15 years of seeing this. We're not going to be able to keep up with the erosion, the decay that's taking place. We have to find a way to get larger groups of doctors together to do what you were talking about, Anthony, which was the voice. We had a guest on, and unifying that voice of doctors. There's no other voice that's more powerful today across the board in any labor group than doctors. They just are all over the place. So we exist to be that unifying voice for you in your workplace, helping in your personal life, and then on an industry level, making change. And the agency piece is helping on the individual side, but the advocacy piece, helping explore all the avenues. What are you really getting from your employer? Where should you really be at from an overall structure, work-life balance sort of experience standpoint? All those factors. We needed to do something bigger and that had more momentum to make a difference to help really put healthcare back on the right track. And that is putting the power back into doctors' hands. That's really, I think, what is that glue that brings us all together, each having a different place along our journeys to getting this point in time where we need to do something different about this. And it's amazing the people that are coming out of the woodwork to talk to us about this. We're getting contacted on a regular basis about stuff that's going on. And this strike, people thought striking, do no harm for your patients. Okay. How much does the employer actually care about not doing harm? If you don't take care of your team, the people on the other side are going to be suffering. They're not going to receive the care that they need. And so that we need to take some serious steps and some action to do things like potentially striking like they are in Buffalo right now to see some change, because they're getting, if you say the numbers, they're getting like $10, $15, $20,000 less compared to some of the neighboring institutions that are at the same level. So getting a correction right there is absolutely essential.
Yeah,
I love it. That's well said too. And I think it's worth saying that patients, when they get it, they want the doctors to be really happy too.
That's right.
Yes.
You want
That's right.
your doctors to be happy and healthy and all those things like that. And so when they hear that doctors are striking, they're curious as to how they've been treated.
Yeah.
Right. So it's there's so much of our communities that are really behind the doctors right now. But their voice does need to be heard, and it's finally being heard on this platform with this brand new microphone.
That's right.
We exist to bring courage. The whole idea of you being a martyr and continuously being a martyr, like the martyrdom that's been taking place to just erode doctor's voice. We can't do it anymore. There won't be a future if we stay on this path. Courage. It's time for courage. You have people behind you. You can contact us. We're here to support you. Whatever you need. If it's just a conversation, we've had a guest on, and we'll probably have her on again. They have a physician suicide hotline.
I was just going to say,
and they've actually had someone commit suicide.
5 people.
5 people.
5 people in 4 years actively commit suicide on the hotline with them. They heard it happen. They heard it happen.
So if you're afraid, if you know somebody who's afraid about what to do in their workplace, there's abuse, there's moral injury, there's people being taken advantage of, there's injustices that are going on. It's time to have courage. We're here to be courage for you. If you don't have courage yourself, we're here to be that courage for you. Just get in touch with us, and we will provide whatever you need to support that, because we can't do it anymore. We can't have the physician suicide hotline. Yes, it's helping some people, but other people are not making it through the phone call. Like, that's a problem.
Hey, if you were listening from beginning to end, thanks for staying a little longer. I promised 15 to 20 minutes. We've kept them to 15 to 20 minutes with guest speakers, but you're talking about the 4 founders here and the passion behind this. We're fed up. And so we might get a little long-winded because we feel like it's time to do something about this. Justin, that was a great way to land the plane. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you. We'll be back for more.
Awesome, guys.
Thank you.
This has been the DocNation podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to us. Your feedback really helps us reach more listeners like you. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to join the conversation. Thanks for listening.